Hello and welcome to The Evangelist. I wanted to present to you, for those that are serious about being effective witnesses, a strategic kind of design for that purpose. And I want to use the idea of flying a plane as the metaphor for being a good witness. And in that regard, for being a good witness, there's the takeoff, there is the flight itself, and then there is the landing. And these are three different component parts in terms of being a good witness. And the first part is takeoff. I highly recommend the design and the philosophy and structure of Evangelism Explosion to this end, particularly for takeoff. What takeoff is engaging in a meaningful conversation, a dialogue with someone who's new to the Christian faith, and going through a process, and I have used an acrostic, an abbreviation, for the Evangelism Explosion approach to takeoff, and that's SCOTT, S-C-O-T-T. This is very important in terms of how you might embark on a flight that is an expression of the gospel, to give a person a chance to believe. And this is our main purpose in witness, being a good witness, is to communicate the gospel and give people a chance to put their faith, their agency, to back this thing, in fact, with their life. To that end, to get to the point of telling the gospel, what we need is a very good introduction or takeoff. And the takeoff I use is SCOTT. And what this means is first S for secular life, meaning we need to understand what makes that person tick, what they live for, not so much what they believe, but what they really live for, what's really important to them. In terms of C, this means church background, or if you like, religious background. And what we need to do is understand their religious worldview, their philosophy on life, their understanding of what is reality for them and for the rest of the world. And in that regard, just digging a little bit, either about themselves or even their ancestors, some of their history in terms of religious understanding, it's worth digging to get an answer. The O in SCOTT is for our church, their impression. And what this is you may be able to introduce yourself in terms of your own religious background, and in particular your religious interest currently, and the church or organisation that you're a part of, and trying to get their reaction to that, how they feel about it, what they think, what they know about it. It's very important for them to, for you to understand their reaction to yourself. Jesus said, if this person receives you, they will receive me. And so you're testing the waters in terms of our church, their testimony, their reaction. You're trying to assess whether they're willing to receive you and your background. The first T in SCOTT is testimony. And in that regard, you're transitioning from the position of what their reaction is to our church or to your church. And from there, you can portray a testimony both about the church in terms of its purpose and its goal, that is to receive eternal life and display that in the very nature of its work and life, but also that you yourself have tasted of this quality of life through the community and through the Christian faith, and that you now you enjoy eternal life and most importantly, an assurance about your eternal well-being. You have a good quality of life now, and you have the promise of eternal life in the future. So this leads us to the second T, and then this is the two diagnostic questions. And these are very important questions to ask. There's a great book about called Questioning Evangelism, and how Jesus himself used questions to help people resolve the big issues in their own life. And in our case, we've tried to learn about their life, learn about their religious background, to learn what their reaction is to us, to test the waters in terms of how they feel about the Christian faith. But also then we go in and ask them two very important questions. The first one is whether they actually have what you have, which is assurance of salvation. Do they know for certain if they died that they have eternal life? Do they possess that quality of life within them as we do? Now we know the answer, which is Christ in us, the hope of glory, but it would be interesting for you to hear, as I have, hundreds and hundreds of people respond to that question. So that's the first one of the two diagnostic questions. The second question is if they did die and stood before God and God was to ask them, why should I let you into heaven? What would you say? And so it's a hypothetical question. We're not trying to convince them that the question's true or right or wrong. It's a hypothetical, and we're asking them to respond to that hypothetical question because we're trying to figure out whether they have any comprehension of justification by faith. So we're asking important questions, first about their assurance of salvation, and secondly, or presumption of salvation, and then secondly, whether they have any comprehension of justification by faith. This is what I call the very, very well-designed takeoff. If we do this well, you will find for sure, as I have, many, many opportunities to then to not just take off, but to fly through the gospel and a gospel presentation. So I highly recommend this, and thanks, credit where credit's due, and thanks to Evangelism Explosion and James Kennedy and those that worked with him to design the introduction like this. Because the goal of this introduction, obviously, is to develop a good quality of trust with the person you're speaking to, that there's a dialogue operating, and on the basis of that, they will entrust you with themselves to listen and hear the good news of the gospel. Thanks for listening.